I'll be staying here from now on. Get used to it. I nearly dropped my purse. Lorraine's voice cut through the air like a bad joke fallen flat. What? Since when? Kevin stood to the side, shifting on his feet, avoiding my eyes. He tried to muster a weak smile. Mom needed a place, Elena. She'll stay with us for a while. I could feel my blood boiling. A place? Kevin, we didn't discuss this. Lorraine rolled her eyes, a smirk flickering across her face. There's no need to raise your voice. It's family business. I glanced at Kevin, searching for some sign of solidarity. He simply shrugged, looking anywhere but at me. She doesn't have anywhere else to go, he muttered. Anger rose in my chest. So you just decide this without asking me? Kevin sighed, walking past me to grab a can of soda from the kitchen. Look, let's not make this a huge deal, okay? It's temporary. Lorraine settled herself on the couch, flipping through a magazine like she owned the place. I clenched my fists, resisting the urge to scream. Temporary? And how long is temporary exactly? Kevin opened the soda, taking a sip. We'll figure it out. She's family, Elena. I turned away, fighting the tears that threatened to spill. Nothing about this felt right. The house I had worked so hard to make our home was now invaded without a second thought. I glanced back at Kevin, hoping for a glimmer of understanding. Kevin, I need to talk to you, alone. He finally looked at me, his face a mix of annoyance and fatigue. Fine, he said, putting down his drink. Let's talk. We walked to the backyard, where the evening air did little to cool my anger. You can't just bring her here without any discussion, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Kevin rubbed the back of his neck. Elena, it's not that simple. She's my mother. I didn't want to sound heartless, but I felt cornered. I understand, but this is our home too. We're supposed to make these decisions together. He gave me a tired look. I thought you'd understand. The sting of those words cut deep. Kevin, that's not fair. I'm trying to understand, but you can't expect me to accept this without talking about it. He shrugged again, as if that single gesture could dissolve my frustration. Look, just give it time. She won't be a problem. I glared at him, unable to fathom his nonchalance. Won't be a problem. She's already taken over the living room. Kevin threw his hands up in surrender. I can't throw her out, Elena. That's all I'm saying. With that, he walked back inside, leaving me fuming in the backyard. The sinking realization dawned on me. My voice didn't matter. Kevin had made up his mind, and Lorraine had dug her heels in. As I stood there, I took a deep breath, my determination solidifying. I would not let this go uncontested. Stepping back inside, I shot a glare at Lorraine. She met my eyes with a cold smile. This is not over, I whispered, mainly to myself. The house, my sanctuary, had become a battleground, and the war had just begun. I can't believe this is happening, I muttered to myself as I left for work the next morning. My best friend Sandra called just as I pulled into the parking lot. Elena, how was your trip? She asked cheerfully. It was fine, but I came back to a nightmare. What do you mean? Her voice grew serious. Kevin's mom moved in, just like that. No discussion, no warning, I said, biting back my frustration. Sandra sighed. You've got to be kidding me. Didn't he even talk to you about it? Nope, it was all decided while I was gone. Sandra was quiet for a moment. You need to lay down some boundaries, Elena. This isn't okay. I know, I said, parking the car and grabbing my bag. It's just complicated. I get it. Just remember, you don't have to put up with this forever, she said, trying to reassure me. Entering the office, I tried to focus on work, but my mind kept drifting back home. Memories flooded in about when Kevin and I first met at this very office. Kevin, the charming graphic designer, always had a way of making everyone laugh. Our romance had been quick and intense. We married after just a year of dating, certain we could handle anything together. Then Lorraine revealed her true colors. Sweet and supportive before the wedding, she turned critical and manipulative once the rings were on our fingers. Kevin, forever the peacemaker, never stood up to her. I'll never forget the first time she openly disapproved of me. Are you sure you can handle Kevin's work hours, Elena? Maybe you should rethink this career of yours, she said, smirking as if she was genuinely concerned. Of course, Kevin and I manage just fine, I had replied, masking my irritation. Kevin had shrugged the comment off, claiming she meant no harm, but the seeds of doubt she planted grew each day. Returning home that evening, I found Lorraine rearranging the kitchen. What are you doing? I couldn't hide my annoyance. Just making it more practical. You had it all wrong, she replied nonchalantly. I clenched my jaw, taking a deep breath. I like it the way it is. Lorraine's voice dripped with false sweetness. Oh, sweetie, you'll see it's better this way. Stepping into the living room, I saw Kevin on his laptop. Kevin, we need to talk, now. He looked up, clearly sensing the tension. What is it? Lorraine is taking over the house. We need to set some boundaries. Kevin sighed, rubbing his temples. Elena, can't you just try and get along with her? It's hard for her, too. I stared at him in disbelief. Are you kidding me? She's acting like this place is hers. She's just trying to help, he replied weakly. Help? By undermining everything I do? I snapped. Kevin stood up, frustration lining his face. Why do you always have to blow things out of proportion? Rare anger bubbled inside me. Blow things out of proportion? You're seriously siding with her? He threw his hands up. I'm not taking sides, I just want some peace. Furious, I stormed out to the backyard. My home felt like a stranger's house, my voice unheard, my feelings disregarded. But I knew deep down this wasn't living. As the night fell, I steeled myself. This wouldn't be swept under the rug. Something had to change, and I would make sure of it. Kevin's passive nature had pushed me to the edge, but I wouldn't fall off. Not yet. Not without a fight. The days blurred into a nightmare. I barely recognized my own house. Lorraine's presence was overpowering. She critiqued everything I did, from how I cooked to how I decorated. Kevin stayed silent through it all, brushing off my concerns like dust on a shelf. One morning, as I sipped my coffee, Lorraine strutted into the kitchen. Elena, I noticed you've been spending a lot on groceries. Maybe you should cut back a bit. I stared at her, biting my tongue until it nearly bled. Lorraine, we buy what we need. She smirked, shaking her head. I'd manage this household differently, but I guess it's your call. Just as I opened my mouth to retort, Kevin walked in. I turned to him. Kevin, do you hear this? He looked between us, clearly uncomfortable. Mom's just trying to help. I slammed my cup down, coffee spilling. Trying to help by undermining me? Kevin sighed, the lines on his face deepening. Why do you always have to make a scene? Lorraine's eyes twinkled with satisfaction. She had him wrapped around her finger. Frustrated, I stormed out of the kitchen. The next day, while I was at work, I got a text from Kevin. We need to talk tonight. Anxiety gnawed at me. When I got home, Lorraine's smug glance followed me as I walked into the living room. Kevin was sitting there, looking stern. Elena, Mom needs money. I've already given her some, but she needs more. My jaw dropped. She needs more. We have bills, Kevin. He rubbed his forehead. I know, but she's family. She's in a tough spot. I turned to Lorraine, who was lounging on the couch, looking unbothered. Can't she find a job or? Lorraine cut me off. I've done my fair share of work. It's time for my son to take care of me. My patience snapped. Kevin, this is not right or fair. You're putting our future at risk. Kevin's face turned red. She's my mother, Elena. She comes first. Tears stung my eyes as I realized where his loyalty lay. What about us, Kevin? What about our life? He stood up, clenching his fists. Maybe you should think about being more supportive. I left the living room, heart pounding with anger and betrayal. The conversation kept replaying in my mind. Kevin's unwavering support for Lorraine and his blatant disregard for our needs. Sandra called that evening. How are you holding up? Not well, I admitted. Lorraine wants money now, and Kevin's ready to give it to her. Sandra's voice brimmed with outrage. That's insane. You need to put your foot down, Elena. It's not that easy, I sighed. He won't listen to me. Then make him listen. You can't keep sacrificing your happiness. Her words echoed in my mind long after we hung up. The next morning I confronted Kevin again. We need to talk about finances. This has to stop. Kevin rolled his eyes. We'll be fine. Desperation gripped me. Kevin, you're jeopardizing everything we've worked for. He shrugged. She's family. You're the one being unreasonable. Anger surged through me. This is my home too. I will not be pushed aside. Walking away from that conversation, I knew things had to change. I couldn't let Lorraine dictate our lives. And if Kevin refused to stand by me, I'd find a way to reclaim my power, no matter the cost. The battle lines were drawn, and I was ready to fight for what was rightfully ours. The escalation had only just begun. I came home late from work one evening, hoping for some semblance of peace. Instead, I walked into Lorraine and Kevin in the middle of a heated discussion. It's not done right, Kevin, Lorraine was saying. Elena doesn't know how to manage this house properly. Kevin looked up as I entered, his expression shifting from annoyance to exasperation. Mom thinks the house isn't clean enough, he said, as if that were the biggest problem we had. Lorraine turned to me, hands on her hips. Elena, couldn't you at least try to keep this place decent? I dropped my bag on the floor, barely containing my fury. I have a full-time job, Lorraine. I can't spend every minute cleaning. Lorraine huffed. When I was your age, I managed just fine. That was the last straw. This isn't about cleaning. You just want to control everything. Kevin stepped between us, his voice rising. Elena, calm down. Mom's just trying to help. Help? By criticizing everything I do? This is my home, Kevin. Our home. Lorraine scoffed. You're overreacting. Maybe if you learned some respect. Before she could finish, I cut her off. Respect? You moved in unannounced, rearranged my kitchen, demanded money, and now you're criticizing how I maintain my home. How is that respectful? Kevin's face turned red with frustration. Elena, why can't you see that she's just looking out for us? I could have screamed from the hopelessness of it all. Looking out for us? She's making me feel like a guest in my own house. Lorraine threw her hands in the air. If you're that unhappy, maybe you should leave. I stared at her, stunned. Turning to Kevin, I waited for him to defend me, but he remained silent. My heart sank. Is that what you want too, Kevin? For me to leave? He avoided my gaze, his silence louder than any words. Tears threatened, but I held them back. Fine, if you want me to leave, just say it. Kevin finally spoke, but his words hit like a brick. Maybe you need to learn some respect for family, or leave if you can't handle basic family expectations. The air was thick with tension as I turned on my heel and stormed out of the house. I needed space, air, anything but the walls that felt like they were closing in on me. Sandra's comforting voice was the only thing that made sense as I paced outside, phone pressed to my ear. He actually said that? She gasped. Yes, basically told me to leave, I whispered, the hurt palpable. Elena, you deserve better than this. If he won't see that, then maybe it's time to rethink things. Her words rang true, but they also scared me. Could I really walk away from 10 years with Kevin, from the home we built? When I finally came back inside, Kevin and Lorraine's voices could still be heard, low and conspiratorial. They didn't notice me slip upstairs, my mind swirling with conflicting thoughts. Lying in bed, I stared at the ceiling, feeling a mix of anger and sadness. I knew I couldn't go on like this. Kevin's spinelessness and Lorraine's incessant meddling were driving me to the edge. Sleep didn't come easily that night, but as exhaustion finally took over, one thing was clear. I needed to stand up for myself. I couldn't let them trample over my life without consequence. The battle wasn't just Lorraine's intrusion, it was about reclaiming my own dignity and worth. Morning broke with a sense of grim determination. I had a conference trip coming up, and it felt like the last chance to find some perspective. Kevin was already at the kitchen table when I came downstairs. We need to talk, he said, as if last night hadn't been a breaking point. Not now, Kevin. I've got a plane to catch, I said, moving past him. He grabbed my arm gently. We'll work this out, I promise. I looked at him, searching for sincerity. We'll see about that. As I left the house, the weight of the impending decisions hung heavy, but I knew one thing for sure. Change was coming, one way or another. The conference trip was a welcome escape. For a few days I immersed myself in work, trying to forget about the chaos at home. But as soon as I landed back at the airport, reality crashed back in. I got a text from Kevin. We need to talk when you get home. Dread settled in my stomach as I walked through the door. Lorraine was in the kitchen, moving pots and pans around as if she could further assert her control over our space. Welcome back, Lorraine said with a smirk. Did you enjoy your trip? Spare me, I muttered, too tired to engage. Kevin was pacing in the living room. When he saw me, he stopped. We need to talk now, Elena. I dropped my bags. Fine, talk. He glanced uneasily at Lorraine before speaking. Mom and I have been discussing our situation. We think you need to make some changes. Changes? I crossed my arms, ready for the next blow. Lorraine interjected. You need to learn to respect family, and clearly, you're struggling with that. I felt like I was being gaslit. Respect goes both ways, Lorraine. You've done nothing but disrespect me since you got here. Kevin stepped in defensively. Mom's just trying to help us make this work. I couldn't hold back anymore. Kevin, are you even listening to yourself? She's tearing us apart. Lorraine put on her most innocent face. Oh, please, you're just blowing things out of proportion. I snapped. You're manipulating Kevin and trying to control our lives. What exactly is your endgame here? Kevin's face turned pale. Elena, stop. We're supposed to be a family. A family that respects each other, I shot back. And right now I feel like I've been completely disrespected and disregarded. Kevin's face contorted with frustration. Maybe you need to spend some time away to clear your head. I was stunned. Do you even hear what you're saying? You want me to leave my own home? Lorraine smirked, clearly enjoying the show. Maybe a little time apart would do you both some good. The silence that followed was deafening. Finally, Kevin broke it. Maybe she's right. I think it's best if you take some time to cool off. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of betrayal. If I leave, I'm not coming back until things change. Kevin looked away, unable to meet my gaze. Do what you need to do, Elena. I turned, grabbing my bags, and walked out the door. It wasn't until I was outside that the tears came. As heart-wrenching as it was also liberating. For too long I had tolerated being second to Lorraine's manipulations. Sandra was at her door before I even rang the bell. Elena, what's happened now? Kevin wants me to leave, I managed between sobs. He sided with Lorraine again. Sandra pulled me into a comforting hug. You've done the right thing. You deserve better. As days turned into a week, I settled into Sandra's spare bedroom. The sting of Kevin's betrayal was sharp, but the time away also gave me clarity. I began consulting with Mark, a trusted lawyer, discussing my options. During one of our meetings, Mark looked up from his papers. You know, Elena, the house is legally yours. I blinked, processing his words. What do you mean? Kevin never updated the deed after you purchased it. Legally, you hold the title. A spark of hope flickered. So I could. Yes, Mark confirmed. You have the power here. Use it wisely. Armed with this knowledge, I prepared for the next battle. Kevin and Lorraine needed a wake-up call, and I was more than ready to give it to them. My time of feeling powerless was over. It was time to reclaim what was rightfully mine. I returned home with a resolve I hadn't felt in years. As I walked through the front door, the silence struck me. It was clear Lorraine and Kevin knew something was up. I found them both in the living room, Kevin on the couch, Lorraine in the armchair. Both turned to face me as I entered. Kevin spoke first, his voice betraying his nervousness. Elena, where have you been? I didn't waste any time. Kevin, Lorraine, sit down. We need to talk. Lorraine's eyes narrowed. About what? Think you can come in here and start making demands? I ignored her, focusing on Kevin. This ends now, Kevin. Lorraine's constant meddling, the financial drain, everything. Kevin's brows furrowed. What are you saying? I'm saying this situation is unbearable. Lorraine's presence and your constant support of her over our marriage is unacceptable. Lorraine stood up, her face a mask of feigned innocence. Oh, I see. So now it's all my fault? Every part of it, I stated bluntly. I've tried to be reasonable, but you've taken over our home, criticized me constantly, and pushed me to the breaking point. Kevin sighed deeply. Elena, we've been over this. She's family. I took a deep breath. Well, here's the thing, Kevin. The house is in my name. Legally, I own this place. Both Kevin and Lorraine froze, their faces pale. What? Kevin muttered, disbelief painting his features. You heard me, and with that, I have the final say on who stays and who goes. Lorraine scoffed, trying to regain her composure. You wouldn't dare. I looked straight at Kevin. If you want to stay in this marriage, Lorraine needs to go. Now. Kevin stammered. Elena, you can't just... Yes, I can, I interrupted. This is my home, and I'm done being pushed around. Lorraine's eyes were on fire. You ungrateful little... Enough, I shouted. Leave, now. Kevin stood up, trying to placate. Elena, can't we discuss this? No, Kevin. I have tried to discuss, to compromise, but you both have taken advantage of my patience. He glanced at his mother, despair clouding his eyes. Mom, maybe it's best if you find somewhere else to stay for a while. Lorraine's face twisted in rage. What? You're kicking me out? Kevin looked down, avoiding her gaze. Maybe just for a little while, until things calm down. She turned to me, venom in her voice. You'll regret this. I met her look with defiance. No, Lorraine, I think this is exactly what I need to do. Kevin's shoulders slumped as Lorraine stormed off to pack her things. He finally looked at me, desperation in his eyes. Elena, I cut him off. Kevin, I love you, but your blind allegiance to your mother has pushed us to this breaking point. Things need to change or we're over. Lorraine brushed past us with her bags, shooting daggers with her eyes. This isn't the end, Elena. Remember that. I didn't flinch. Goodbye, Lorraine. After she slammed the door, the house fell into an eerie silence. Kevin and I stood there, the distance between us growing. This wasn't going to be fixed overnight. If Kevin couldn't adjust, I knew I'd have to walk away for good. For now, though, a heavy weight lifted from my shoulders. The battle wasn't completely won, but the most reinforcing battle had been, and I felt stronger for it. The next steps were uncertain, but I was ready to face them head-on. Kevin was unusually quiet in the days following Lorraine's departure. Tension hung in the air like a storm about to break. His silence was heavy, his movements slow, and it was clear he was struggling to process everything. One evening, while we were having dinner, he finally spoke up. Elena, I never wanted it to get this bad. I looked at him, wanting to believe there was genuine regret. Kevin, it's not just about wanting or not wanting. It's about actions and consequences. You've allowed your mother to disrespect me for years. He sighed, pushing his food around on his plate. I know, but I didn't know how to stop her. By standing up to her, Kevin, by putting our marriage first, I said, my voice firmer than I felt. You're right, he admitted, sadly. I've been a coward. The admission felt like a small victory, but I wasn't about to let him off easy. Kevin, I need you to understand that things have to change. If they don't, we won't survive this. He looked up, his eyes pleading. I'll do whatever it takes, Elena. Just tell me what to do. I took a deep breath. We need professional help, counseling, and you need to rebuild the trust that's been shattered. Kevin nodded, slowly. I'll make an appointment tomorrow. The next few days were filled with cold, practical coexistence. We barely spoke outside of necessity. I needed space to heal, and Kevin seemed to need time to regain his footing. Then, another bombshell hit. Lorraine started calling, leaving messages. Kevin ignored them at first, but one evening he played them all at once, his face pale. Lorraine's voice was shrill and desperate. Kevin, I need you to come here. Things are bad. I don't know what to do. Kevin turned to me, eyes wide with helplessness. She's in trouble, Elena? I crossed my arms, feeling my resolve harden. She's been in trouble of her own making. She dug this hole, Kevin. I know, but she's still my mother, he said, his voice shaking. I closed my eyes, feeling the familiar sting of frustration. If you go to her now, Kevin, you're undoing any progress we've made. He froze, torn between guilt and duty. But if I don't go, what kind of son am I? One who finally sets boundaries. One who respects his wife, I replied. Kevin's shoulders drooped. What do you want me to do? This is a test for you, Kevin. You need to choose us. If you don't, I'll know where we stand, I said, each word a heavy verdict. Kevin slowly nodded. All right, I won't go. The next day I consulted Mark again, finalizing some practical matters regarding the house. When I returned home, Kevin was waiting. I didn't respond to her, he said quietly, just like you asked. A small part of me felt relief. That's a start, Kevin. And I made an appointment with the counselor for both of us, he added. I nodded, feeling cautiously optimistic. Good, we need this. Later, as we sat silently in the living room, Kevin finally broke the quiet. I regret everything, Elena. Letting her come between us was the worst mistake of my life. I looked at him, sensing some genuine change. This is your chance to prove it. He reached out, taking my hand. I promise, Elena, I'll do better. As the days turned into weeks, we attended counseling sessions, slowly working through years of built-up resentment and betrayal. It wasn't easy, and I wasn't sure if Kevin and I would fully recover, but for the first time, there was a glimmer of hope. However, I couldn't shake the feeling that Lorraine wasn't done with her schemes, and I remained vigilant, ready for whatever her next move would be. This battle wasn't over, but I was no longer willing to be a passive participant in my own life. I was prepared to fight for my happiness, no matter the cost. The decision to move out temporarily was my last resort. Kevin and I had made progress in counseling, but I needed a fresh start to clear my mind and regain control. I found a small, furnished apartment a few blocks away, allowing me to maintain some distance while still keeping an eye on the home front. The day I left, Kevin looked distraught. Elena, I understand why you need to do this, but it feels so final. It's not forever, Kevin. It's just for now, I said, mustering as much reassurance as I could. I need space to heal. He nodded, but his eyes were filled with worry. I'll be here when you're ready. As I settled into my new place, I threw myself into work, excelling at the marketing firm and networking with new clients. One evening, I received a call from Nathan Parker, an old friend who had just launched a startup. Elena, I've been following your career for a while now. I'd love for you to join my team, he said enthusiastically. Excitement bubbled up. That sounds amazing, Nathan. Let's meet and discuss it further. Meanwhile, Lorraine's life was unraveling. Rumors reached me through mutual acquaintances. She and Kevin had been forced to move into a rundown apartment, their finances in tatters without my contributions. It seemed karma was catching up to her. Several weeks passed before Kevin called. Elena, can we meet? I need to talk to you. We met at a small cafe. Kevin looked worn out but sincere. I've missed you. The house feels empty without you. I've missed you too, I admitted, though cautiously. But have things changed? He sighed deeply. Lorraine's in over her head. She's been manipulating me for so long, and I finally see it. I've made arrangements for her to move in with a relative out of state. I raised an eyebrow. Really? Yes, he confirmed. I want to make things right, Elena. I want us to be happy again. A part of me felt relief, but I also knew I had to protect my heart. Kevin, it'll take time for me to believe things have truly changed. He nodded, understandingly. I'm willing to wait. As I walked back to my apartment, I mulled over our conversation. Was it possible Kevin had really changed? Only time would tell. The next day, I met with Nathan. The startup's energy was infectious, and I accepted his offer to join the team as their head of marketing. It was a fresh, exciting challenge and a chance to build something new. Months flew by. Work was fulfilling, and Kevin and I maintained cautious communication. Finally, one afternoon, I received the news I'd been expecting. Lorraine had moved out of state. Kevin called me later, his voice hopeful. The house is ours again, Elena? Can we start over? I hesitated a moment before answering. Yes, Kevin. We can give it another try. Moving back into the house felt surreal. It was as if a dark cloud had lifted, and the space was filled with possibilities once more. Kevin worked hard to rebuild trust, and the counseling sessions became a solid foundation for our new beginning. One evening, as we sat on the porch watching the sun dip below the horizon, Kevin turned to me. Thank you for giving us another chance, Elena. I won't let you down. Looking at him, I saw a genuine change and commitment in his eyes. I believe you, Kevin. Let's make the most of this. Life gradually became stable and fulfilling again. My career at Nathan's startup soared, and Kevin and I rediscovered our love and partnership. Lorraine's absence was a blessing that allowed us to focus on us without the constant undercurrent of manipulation. Occasionally, I'd hear whispers about Lorraine struggling in her new living situation. She had burned many bridges and found herself isolated and vulnerable. It may have been karma's way of balancing the scales. As time went on, Kevin and I thrived, stronger and more resilient than ever. The journey had been long and painful, but the light at the end was worth the battle. Now our lives felt rooted in mutual respect and genuine love, standing tall amidst the trials we'd conquered together.
Can you check again? How much is the charge?
Sir, the accommodation fee is $35,000.
This is a ripoff. This hotel is scamming us.
My husband and mother-in-law were astonished by the excessive bill, and they shrank back in shock. Seeing them like that, I couldn't help but laugh. This was the ultimate ending I had hoped for. But don't think this is the end. There's even more hell waiting for you too. My name is Nadia Williams, 35 years old. I work in fashion. I usually make handmade clothes and sell them for profit. I started this job 7 years ago when I married my husband Sean. I was drawn to him immediately as he gently led me, a shy person. When we got married, he had one request.
Nadia, will you become a stay-at-home wife after we get married?
A stay-at-home wife? But isn't it better to both work until we have kids?
My mom was never good at housekeeping, and I always dreamed of homemade meals and a constant clean house. I want you to stay home, especially for our future kids.
But I can't just not to do anything.
As long as you're at home, you can do whatever you like.
I can?
Yeah, as long as it's something you can do from home.
After some discussion, I decided to become a stay-at-home wife with the condition of working from home. I loved sewing, so I started my own brand. It was just a small venture, selling my creations on a flea market app. Years later, it gained popularity, and I started getting direct orders through my website. Both my work and my marriage were going well. Life was fulfilling. Then suddenly, something happened that completely changed my everyday life. One day, my husband Sean came home from work and said,
Nadia, we're going to live with my mom at her place starting next month.
I was so surprised that I stopped cooking. Live together? Where did that come from?
My dad passed away 2 months ago, and now mom is all alone in that house. She must be feeling lonely there.
But this is so sudden.
You always said you wanted to get along with my mom. It's a good opportunity.
I guess, but I lost my parents when I was young and never had the chance to be filial. So I always wanted to do what I could for my husband's parents, but I never expected it would be living together. Since Sean made it sound like a done deal, I couldn't refuse, and we moved in with his mother the following month. At first, my mother-in-law Lucy was welcoming and treated me normally, but after a week of living together, her attitude changed dramatically. I was sewing a dress when she barged into my room without knocking and scowled at me.
Hey Nadia, what on earth are you doing locked up in your room?
Oh Lucy, sorry. I'm working right now. I tried to explain, showing her the half-finished dress, but she looked disgusted.
Work? What nonsense are you talking about? That's just your hobby.
This is part of my job, not just a hobby.
Don't talk back to me. If you have time for such play, why not do some cleaning?
Yes, sorry. I will be more careful in the future. I make clothes and sell them online, using the profits to invest in other projects. It's not a hobby. I'm serious about it. But no matter how many times I explain, she won't listen. She insists it's not a real job. Her initial kindness disappeared, and her mistreatment became harsher. She seems to dislike me, staying in my room during the day. She started assigning me petty chores, disrupting my work pace, and making it hard for me to create freely. A month after her mistreatment began, it was affecting my work, so I decided to talk to Sean. Sean, I need to talk to you about your mom.
What about mom?
Well, whenever I work, she scolds me to do housework. I can't get any work done lately. He sighed heavily and replied reluctantly.
Isn't that because you're not taking care of the housework like you're supposed to?
What?
You prioritize your own stuff without even managing the basic housework. That's why mom is just reminding you.
That's not true. I always finish the housework before I start working.
Your work doesn't make much money, so just give it up already. Please don't upset mom. It's a hassle. I'm going to take a bath.
With that, he left the room. Tears started to flow from the frustration. I was truly shocked that even my husband didn't understand me. He probably told Lucy about this, because her attitude towards me became harsher the next day.
You are a stay-at-home wife and still want to spend time on your hobby? Stop being so spoiled.
But Lucy, This is a real job for me.
Job? A job means going out and working like Sean. You're not earning, so it's only right that you do housework non-stop.
Lucy, please listen. These are valid from work nowadays. You might think it's just an extension of a hobby, but I'm really committed to it.
Shutting yourself in your room making silly handmade items is work? Ridiculous. Save some nonsense for your dreams.
Her mistreatment got worse, and without Sean's support, I could only work freely at night, and I had to fight against time every day to avoid delays. Before I knew it, I was completely exhausted, both mentally and physically. Influenced by Lucy, Sean too began to treat me coldly.
Why are you so inefficient? You're always getting scolded by Mom.
I'm sorry, but I always do what she asks.
Shut up. If you were doing it right, Mom wouldn't be mad every day. Open your eyes, you useless wife.
How can you say that? Fighting back only made things worse. Understanding this, I gradually spoke less and less, and my motivation plummeted. Then one day, a travel brochure arrived at our house. Even though it was addressed to me, Sean and Lucy excitedly opened it.
Hey Mom, look at this. A 3-night stay at a luxury hotel, exclusively for our tour. Unlimited gourmet food. How cool is that?
First class flight too. Amazing. And it's only $900 per person. What a deal.
Right? It's awesome. Normally, this trip would cost $35,000.
What are the conditions?
The conditions are, Mom, check this out.
Let me see. I see.
They turned to me with beaming smiles and said,
Nadia, let's go on a trip together.
Yes, Nadia. You're going to New York with us. How does that sound?
I was momentarily baffled. A family trip? With me? After they always treated me like a nuisance. Why? While I was still confused, they continued.
We've been giving you a hard time with all the housework. A little break for a trip would be nice, right?
Yes, let's spend some quality family time together for once. Right, Nadia?
Are you sure? Both of them smiled broadly and said in union, Of course. It had been a long time since they had spoken to me so kindly, and I felt a warmth in my heart. I thought I was finally accepted as part of the family. I decided to put the past behind me and enjoy this trip. In the days leading up to the trip, the mistreatment from them stopped, and we even had lively conversations about our upcoming vacation. Thanks to that, I was able to spend my days in peace. By the way, the organizer of this trip was a handmade federation I belonged to. Business was booming, and profits were rising. That's why they could offer such a luxury trip at an exceptional price. I had never participated before, but seeing my enthusiastic husband and mother-in-law, I also started looking forward to it. On the day of the trip, the three of us arrived at the airport, where the tour operator confirmed our number. Right after the confirmation, my husband and mother-in-law glared at me.
Hey Nadia, you can go back home now.
Yes, thank you for coming here.
What? Go back home? But the trip is just starting.
Didn't you hear? You're not part of our family.
Right. Don't dawdle and go home. We're about to enjoy a luxury tour.
But the conditions for this tour were...
We've just confirmed the number of people, so it's fine. Go home already.
Such a presumptuous daughter-in-law. That's why I can't stand you.
Stunned, I stood there as he coldly said,
Even if we are not there, Don't slack off on the housework. Make sure you clean the house too. Got it?
Suddenly being treated so harshly, it clicked. The trip required 3 participants. I was just used to meet the requirement. A wave of sadness and frustration swept through me. I had put everything behind me and looked forward to enjoying this trip with the family. And it was all a lie. I didn't care about them anymore. I was determined to take back my life. I contacted the hotel through the Federation and explained the situation, asking them to charge my husband and mother-in-law the regular fee. Meanwhile, I rebooked the same hotel, inviting friends to meet the 3-person requirement, and got the Federation's discounted rate. On the 4th day, the last day of their trip, I finally went to the hotel. As expected, I saw my confused husband and mother-in-law at the reception. Sean, with a contorted face, kept asking the receptionist,
Can you check again? How much is the charge? Yes, sir. The accommodation fee is $35,000. No way, you're lying, right? We'll be instructed to charge the regular price. After all, Miss Nadia Williams, who is a member here, is not present, correct? But still, $35,000 is ridiculous. That's unbelievable.
His face turned pale as he ranted in a distressed voice.
This is a ripoff. This hotel is scamming us.
Exactly. $35,000 is absurd.
I'm sorry, ma'am, but...
I quickly stepped in before the receptionist could be troubled further. I apologized for the trouble caused by my family.
Miss Williams, welcome to our hotel.
The receptionist seems to remember me from my only visit. Such is the service of a luxury hotel. Seeing me, Sean's eyes widened.
Nadia, why are you here?
Why? I'm just staying here for 2 nights and 3 days. Is there a problem?
This hotel overcharges for stays. You've been here. You should know.
Ripoff? What are you talking about? Didn't you just hear the regular rate?
Regular rate? Even if we splurge, $35,000 is impossible.
A luxury hotel exclusively for your tour. Top-tier rooms, meals made with the finest ingredients, helicopter sightseeing flights at night, limousine for transportation, cruises during the day. After enjoying all that, you can't complain about being overcharged, can you?
But...
Well, if I, a member, had been there, this wouldn't have happened. Sean exclaimed in agony.
What's that supposed to mean?
Lucy, having overheard, turned red and confronted me.
Hey, Nadia, what do you mean by that? Explain yourself.
The trip was organized by the federation I'm part of. If I, a member, had participated, you wouldn't have been charged such a high fee. Understand?
What? You should have said that earlier. And you bring this up now? What a useless, whiny daughter-in-law.
She approached me, yelling fiercely.
Just sort this out with these people. We can't pay $35,000.
Why should I?
It's obvious. This happened because you weren't here. It's a major family crisis. So help us out.
At this point, I was utterly astounded by the convenience of their words. What are you talking about? At the airport, you yelled at me saying, "Go back home now." I was just used for the head count.
Well,
what do you want to do? Shall we continue arguing here?
Fine, I apologize. Just do something about it quickly, please.
She pleaded desperately, to which I responded coldly. No.
What do you mean, no?
Why should I help you? After all the mistreatment, now you want my help just because things turned bad for you? Isn't that a bit too convenient?
Hey, just calm down. We are really in trouble right now. Like I give a shit about your problems.
My sudden change in tone took them by surprise, making them shudder.
Being forced to return from the airport like that was the most humiliating experience in my 30 years of life. And of course, it's all because of you and your son. That's why I'm apologizing. Please just forgive us.
An apology won't cut it.
I don't want compensation from you. Who would help you now? As of today, I'm cutting all ties with this so-called family. Enjoy your descent into hell together.
After saying that, I checked in as if nothing had happened. I could feel their resentful gaze as I left them behind and headed to my room in the luxury hotel. Later, I heard they continued to cause a scene, saying they couldn't pay, and eventually, it even involved the police. It was obvious that pair couldn't afford $35,000. In the end, they maxed out their credit cards to the limit. Afterward, I hired a lawyer to divorce and moved out of my in-laws' house, renting a new place for myself. My husband reportedly started a part-time job in traffic control as a second job. Lucy, who had been a housewife, was forced to take a part-time job and is now struggling with the harsh realities of life. They will likely be living a tight budget for a while. Well, it's all their own doing. They should suffer for enjoying themselves at that luxury hotel. I keep receiving desperate texts from my ex-husband.
I was wrong. I've reflected on my behavior, and I want to start over. Let's go on a trip, just the two of us, without my mom. How about Tahiti? You're reading this, right? Come back to me, Nadia.
I found it annoying, so I blocked all his contacts. Meanwhile, I resumed work in my new home after a 3-day vacation with my friends. Being able to work in a peaceful environment without anyone complaining feels truly wonderful. Thankfully, the popularity of my clothes keeps increasing. I plan to continue pouring my heart into making clothes that bring joy to many people.
So why did you bring your mother, Anna, at our place without even asking me about it?
Because if she continues to live at that house, my mom would have no place for her and she would just suffocate.
How long are you planning to have Anna stay here at our place?
Oh, I don't know. Maybe until everything calms down, I guess.
I wanted to question my husband, Sam, further about what he meant when he said that. But more than that, I was just disappointed by how my husband was really overprotective about his own mother, or rather, how he acted like a mama's boy. My name is Tia, and I am 30 years old, working in a company. I married my husband, Sam, and it has been 3 years now since we got married. My husband and I do not have any kids yet at the moment, and both of us are working. I am better at doing most of the house chores than my husband, so I basically do all the cleaning and cooking around the house. But when there were days where I had to work overtime and had to work really late, my husband will cook very simple meals for me, and on weekends he would clean the shower, bath, and toilet. So I believe that we have a reasonably well-balanced life as a married couple. But recently, there has been a slight change in our everyday life. That is that my husband has been visiting his parents' place a lot more frequently than before. The reason for this is probably due to my husband's father, who had passed away about 6 months ago. My father-in-law, Jack, and my mother-in-law, Anna, used to live together in their house. But when Jack passed away and Anna was left all alone, my husband's brother, Cameron, and his wife, Susan, began living with Anna. But unfortunately, ever since they started living together, it seems that Anna, Cameron, and Susan are not getting along very well. So, my husband has been visiting over, going to their place to be their mediator, and standing in between them as they fight with each other frequently. At first, I think that both Cameron and Susan were doing reasonably well living together with Anna. Anna was really depressed at the time when Jack suddenly passed away and left her, and she definitely needed someone's support right away. Even I took some time out of my work schedule to visit Anna at her house to support her for a little while. But thanks to the efforts made by Cameron and Susan, Anna had gradually regained her health and became more positive. And I remember that we were all saying to each other how relieved we all were because of that. So, when Anna got much better, an unexpected incident struck Cameron and Susan. The incident involved Cameron and Susan's daughter, Sarah, who was a grandchild for Anna. Anna, who had regained her energy and health, began to strictly educate Cameron and Susan's daughter for some reason. Cameron and Susan's daughter was only 3 years old, but Anna keeps on strictly telling her things like, "You don't know how to hold the spoon properly," or yelling, "You better eat all the vegetables," to Sarah. And if she didn't finish her meal completely, Anna would have Sarah continue to sit by the table and not allow her to do anything else, and just educated her very strictly in a really old-fashioned way. Susan, on the other hand, wanted to let her own daughter have as much freedom as possible, which was her own way of raising her daughter. So, she wanted to follow a policy of not being too strict on her daughter. But Anna is so strict and educating Sarah in a strict way that Susan is struggling to stop her every time she tries to be strict to Sarah. Cameron also agrees with Susan's way of raising their own child, and has been warning Anna about how strict she was, but unfortunately, Anna does not listen to him at all and is doing whatever she wants. But since Cameron comes home late at night after work, Susan had to try and stop Anna's outrageous outbursts all by herself during the day and during dinner time. After that, both Cameron and Susan discussed the issue to Anna and made a promise that they would do their house chores separately. And since then, for a while, Anna did not really interfere with the married couple or their daughter. But since they did not live separately as they were living in the same house, Anna gradually began to break her promise and began over-interfering as usual, and everything had gone back to how it was in the beginning. Anna also began to act so selfishly that it was appalling to hear her throw away Susan's clothes without any permission just because the clothes looked old. Or also threw away Sarah's favorite clothes, saying, "This doesn't look good on her." And then one day, an incident occurred. While Susan was shopping at the supermarket for groceries, Anna and Sarah were left alone for about 20 minutes. At this point, Sarah was now 4 years old, and she was playing in the living room, and Anna was there, so Susan let her guard down, thinking that everything would be fine while she went to the supermarket. Then, when Susan came home from shopping, she saw something that was surprising and unexpected. Anna was cutting Sarah's hair very short. To this, Susan was screaming at Anna, asking her, "What are you doing?" and immediately began questioning Anna. Then Anna replied, "A child this age plays outside more often, don't you think? And all the girls' hair grows long very quickly, so you might as well cut it short." and said this as if she had done the right thing. Sarah looked as if she was about to cry, as her hair was being cut really short. After that, Cameron came back home, and finding out about what had happened, Cameron and Anna had the biggest argument ever, and that is where my husband comes in, as he is being the mediator between the two of them lately. But what I think personally is that as long as there is already a huge gap between Cameron and Anna, there seems to be no room for improvement, even if my husband intervenes. Besides, no matter how much I listen to what had happened in a logical way, the cause is entirely Anna's fault. And yet, Anna does not seem to think that it is all her fault at all. So, I think that's another reason why Anna is having conflicts and arguments with Cameron and Susan. I said to my husband, if you are going to hold the line between Anna and Cameron, I think you need to make sure that Anna is aware of what is wrong. But to this, he replied saying, no, it's not my mom's fault. She's doing the right thing. And my husband was completely on Anna's side and agreeing with what she had done. Hearing what Sam had to say, I really questioned if he was the right mediator for Anna, Cameron, and Susan. I contacted Susan because I was concerned about whether Sam was functioning properly as a mediator. Although there were days when he made frequent trips to their house and even stayed overnight. Then to this, Susan replied, to be honest, the gap between us got even more worse since Sam got involved here. Oh, I knew it. According to Susan's story, my husband kept saying to Cameron, you should understand Mom's point of view, and said things which was defending Anna, and to that, Anna would take advantage of what Sam was saying and say even more terrible things or act even more terrible towards Cameron and Susan. Since then, Cameron got tired of Anna and Sam and is completely unwilling to deal with them, and now Cameron and Susan is making preparations to leave the house. Hearing this story, I apologized to Susan about my husband. To that, Susan said, well, this would have happened sooner or later, and did not blame my husband for making things worse, even though it was his fault. That night, I arrived home after work and waited for my husband to come home so that I could teach him a lesson for what he had done. But then, Sam did something in which I had never imagined him to do.
I'm home.
Welcome home. I need to talk to you about something.
Oh, yeah, me too. It'll finish quick, though. Mother!
Huh? My husband had brought Anna into this house. Well, long time no see, Tia. Hello. I immediately grabbed my husband by the neck and questioned him as I whispered into his ears. What is the meaning of this, Sam? So why did you bring your mother, Anna, at our place without even asking me about it?
Because if she continues to live at that house, my mom would have no place for her and she would just suffocate.
How long are you planning to have Anna stay here at our place?
Oh, I don't know. Maybe until everything calms down, I guess.
I wanted to question my husband, Sam, further about what he meant when he said that. But more than that, I was just disappointed by how my husband was really overprotective about his own mother, or rather, how he acted like a mama's boy. When I was visiting Anna's house frequently, I didn't really notice it. But hearing Susan's stories and witnessing this kind of behavior made it clear to me that my husband is a mama's boy. But just because he's a mama's boy does not mean that he should have brought home Anna without even telling me anything about it. I decided that I needed to have a proper discussion with my husband, so I told him that we would discuss it further after our work the next day, and that we'd discuss this somewhere outside where Anna was not there. I even sent him the address of a coffee shop during my lunch break and told him to meet me after work. But my husband did not show up even after waiting for him about an hour. I even sent a text message to him, but he did not respond at all. So I had no choice but to go home. And when I went back home, my husband was at home already, happily eating dinner with his mother.
Oh, welcome home, Tia. My mom made some fried chicken and pasta tonight. They're really delicious, so you should hurry up and eat too, Tia.
I couldn't stop being irritated and frustrated at Sam. Then, while Anna was gone to the bathroom, I quickly began questioning my husband. We promised that we'd discuss about your mother today, right? So why didn't you come to the coffee shop?
Well, because my mom said that she was going to make fried chicken and pasta today. Besides, there's nothing much to discuss about my mother, is there?
Ha! There is so much to talk about. Like about what had happened to Cameron and Susan, and how long you're going to have Anna here. There was so much that I wanted to say to Sam, but the discussion was interrupted since Anna had returned back to her seat from the bathroom. And a few days later, when I tried to discuss it with my husband, he brushed it off, and it seemed like Anna would not be leaving either anytime soon. I was getting really irritated and frustrated by this point that I could no longer concentrate on my work or focus on my house chores, so I took a paid leave from work for one day. I felt restless at home, so I went shopping for the first time in a while, went to a coffee shop which I had been wanting to visit, and relaxed as much as I could. I went out in the morning and came home around 2 p.m. and no one was home and it was too early to cook dinner, so I began to lay down on the living room couch and watched the TV. Then suddenly, the doorbell rang. I wondered who it was, and when I opened the door, I saw the delivery man. And there were several huge cardboard boxes next to him. I thought that this was strange since neither my husband or I ordered anything that huge, so I looked at the invoice and saw that they were all addressed to Anna, and that the sender was my husband. And this was when I finally realized what was happening. My husband was going to completely take Anna in with him and live with her here. Once I began to think that and connect the dots, I felt all these affectionate feelings I had for my husband disappear. I had been trying to think of a way to make everyone happy, Anna, Sam, and Cameron and Susan, but I had realized that there was no way that everyone can be happy. And I also learned how selfish and irredeemable my husband is, and how hopeless the situation was. That day, my husband was still hanging around and being with Anna most of the time, and came home after having dinner with her. Then, the next day, when I saw him at the dinner table, my husband said,
Oh, by the way, my mom's packages will be arriving around today, so please take care of it.
To this, I replied back saying, Oh, those packages. I sent them back. And my husband replied angrily saying,
What? Why? What are you doing?
And he sounded really furious. I was just too tired to even fight Sam, so I simply said, I just don't approve of Anna living together in this house. And to that, my husband snapped.
You've got to be kidding. If that's the case, then you better get out of here.
Saying really stupid things. I've already had enough and I didn't want to deal with my husband, so I said, Well, I'm going back to my parents' house for today, and went to work. My husband came out from the living room and said,
Don't you ever come home again.
Which didn't make any sense at all, but I ignored it. I really couldn't care less anymore about Sam and didn't even want to talk to him anymore. That day, I went back to my parents' house after work. I spent the next few days relaxing at my parents' house and at the same time making certain preparations. During that time, I received several phone calls and messages from my husband, but all he said was apologize to my mother and I, and other selfish, stupid things, so I ignored all of the text messages and blocked his calls. Then, when everything was ready, I went home for the first time in a long time. Seeing me back home, my husband said,
"Oh, so you came back because you're sorry,"
and grinned at me while he said this. Yes, I'm sorry.
"Well then, I forgive you."
It was annoying to see my husband's idiotic, triumphant look on his face. Oh, please, don't get me wrong. What I was saying sorry for is that I was regretting my mistake of marrying a stupid person like you.
What?
I can't keep on doing this with you anymore, so let's just get a divorce. And saying that, I handed him the divorce papers.
Divorce? Are you being serious?
My husband was surprised, but when he realized that I was being dead serious, he said,
Fine. Have it your way. I'll divorce you.
And signed the divorce papers.
Get all your stuff together and get the hell out of here.
I couldn't really believe he was still saying these things like that. So, I showed my husband a document, as he was misunderstanding a lot.
What the hell is this?
It's the contract for this room. Oh, Sam, did you even forget that my parents are the ones who own this apartment room? Then I saw my husband's face turn completely pale. So, you and Anna should be the ones to leave this place, okay? I've decided to lend this room to another person, so you have until the end of the month to get out of here, okay?
Hey, wait a minute. Let's just discuss this properly.
Excuse me? What the hell are you saying? You're the one who's been refusing to discuss about everything I've been trying to discuss with you about all along, weren't you?
Yes, that's right, but...
Finally, at this point, it seems that my husband understood the importance of the situation. Anyways, just pack up your stuff and go back to Anna's house with her, okay?
No, I can't. Actually...
According to my husband's story, Anna's house had already been put up for sale. Cameron and Susan had already moved out of the house, so my husband and Anna came to the stupid conclusion that since Cameron and Susan left, Sam and Anna would just sell the house and use that money for Anna's retirement funds and live here instead. Hearing what had happened, I was just too stunned and speechless about how stupid Sam and Anna was being. Anywho, just get out quickly, okay? If you both won't leave, I'll call the police on you. My husband had a look of despair on his face, and he looked really hopeless. I ignored him and just packed my bags and left the house. After that, I heard that Anna and Sam had rented a reasonably priced apartment for them to live in together. But my ex-husband's salary alone did not allow the two of them to live in such a nice room, and the room was much downgraded from the one they had been living in. So Anna constantly complained about it to him, and because of that, my ex-husband was always irritated and frustrated. As for Cameron and Susan, they took this opportunity to move to the countryside, and they are now living comfortably in a place which is really rich in nature. And as for me, I am enjoying the life all on my own in an apartment for a single person. Recently, I also began to have a cat as my pet, and now I enjoy playing and hanging around with the cat at home every day after work, which helps me relax my mind too. Because of what had happened, I don't want to be in love for a while now, so I'm going to enjoy my life with the cat to the fullest. Thank you for watching until the end. Please subscribe to our channel. We hope to see you in our next video.
My Mill left for Paris while her husband was bedridden. As soon as she was gone, he jumped out of the bed.
Did you think you're coming with us? I'm going with my family. I don't want a stranger tagging along with us. Besides, my husband is disabled and is nothing but a burden now. If I bring him with us, he would ruin the fun. You have to stay behind and take care of him by yourself. You used to be an angel in white, so you can't say no, can you? I brought you here for that purpose in the first place. So do your part. I was living with my in-laws to support my father-in-law, who was seriously injured in an accident. One day, I was in the kitchen doing my chores without a clue when my mother-in-law and my husband left the house with a large suitcase in their hands. They didn't care about my father-in-law's condition. They had no way of knowing what I was doing through every day in the house. I clenched my fist with tears of frustration. Shall we go too? I turned to face the sudden voice and was shocked to see the appearance of my father-in-law. 10 days later, this story took a turn of events. I'm Beth, 28 years old. I used to work as a nurse at a nearby hospital. My husband Alex, who used to frequent the hospital, took an interest in me, and we got married 6 months ago. He's 35 years old, 7 years older than me, and works as a civil servant. I used to work both day and night shifts depending on the emergency. This meant that I would have less time to spend with him. I stopped working for the time being and have been a full-time housewife. I never liked doing housework, but I gradually learned to be efficient for the sake of hardworking Alex. One night, he received a call from his mother. I could hear her frantic voice over the phone. "Oh my God, your dad got into a car accident. I don't know what to do. Oh dear, what should I do?" "Mom, calm down. Take a deep breath and tell me what happened." I was stunned to hear that my father-in-law Connor had been in an accident. He had suffered a serious head injury, lost consciousness, and was rushed by ambulance. Fortunately, he survived, but the doctor said that his brain was damaged and that he would need adequate care for the rest of his life. This is terrible. Beth, will you move in with my parents? My mom wouldn't be able to do it all by herself. It'll be a relief to have someone with experience. Of course, I'm concerned too. I would do anything to help such a great father-in-law. Thus, I willingly accepted Alex's request to move in with my in-laws. The next day, I started a new life living with the four of us. However, it was the beginning of hell for me. At first, my mother-in-law Elle welcomed me with smiles and open arms. Within 3 days, she gave up on housework, and I found myself doing everything. "Beth, you are a full-time housewife, right? Then there's no reason for me to do the housework. Connor can't move or talk, so you look after him well. You were taking care of your patients before, so it's an easy task for you, right?" She always took the easy way out and forced me to do things she didn't want to do. My in-laws' house was a big 5-bedroom mansion. It took me hours just to do the usual cleaning. On top of that, I had to do the laundry, cook meals, and take care of Connor. I was exhausted every day. Even so, I did everything without relying on Elle, but she never once thanked me. On the contrary, she enjoyed criticizing my efforts. "Beth, you're not washing the clothes in the right way." Your cooking is tasteless without the proper seasoning. How can you call yourself a full-time housewife? I'm sorry, but I do everything by myself. Can you let me do it the way I want? No, you've only been a housewife for 6 months and already think you're all that. This is my house. You live here, so you obey me. I became increasingly fed up with her treating me like a servant and asked Alex for help. Hon, can't you help me out once in a while? I'm getting tired of having to deal with your mother's complaints day in and day out. He responded with a smirk. Well, she has the authority in this house, so you just need to follow her rule. I'm already tired from working, so no way I'm gonna help you with the chores. For someone who's been provided by me, you're asking too much. I'd rather you be grateful. He was completely on Elle's side. While enduring such a situation, I tried my best to help Connor recover every day. 6 months after we started living together, he got better to the point he could walk. How wonderful to see you walking. I praised his efforts in tears, partly because I had been rewarded for all the care I had given him. However, he was still unable to speak properly and remained mute in response to me. He was not able to eat well and still suffered from the after effects of the accident. Still, I held his hand tightly and kept telling him it's gonna be alright. The next morning, as I was preparing breakfast, I heard Elle and Alex talking in the living room. It's our first trip to Paris. I can't believe I get to enjoy my first trip abroad with you. I'm so excited. Me too. I'm honored to be able to take you there. Let's forget our stress and enjoy it to the fullest. Apparently, they had been planning the trip for several days without telling me and Connor. When I overheard that they would be leaving soon, I rushed to the living room. What on earth are you talking about? A trip to Paris? Oh, you heard us. We are going for a little getaway together. Do you have a problem? I guess not. I thought it was nice that they were taking a trip together, but what bothered me was that they kept it a secret from me. Isn't it too abrupt that you're leaving today? Why didn't you tell me in advance? I've always wanted to visit Paris. I'm hurt that you didn't include me in your planning. What are you talking about? You're staying at home, of course. Even if I told you, I knew you would stop us anyway, so I decided to tell you on the day. And I don't want to bring my disabled husband with me. I don't want the hassle for sure. You're a housewife who can't even do the job properly. Why don't you be useful at least for a change? I'm just glad to get away from Connor. Seeing my bewildered face, Elle smiled triumphantly and kept speaking ill of him. She never even tried to get involved with his care anyway. Mom, it's time to go. Oh yes, we are leaving now. We'll be away for about 10 days, so make sure you take care of the house and take good care of Connor's dementia. I guess he's only going to get worse. I couldn't help but gasp at her insolent attitude toward her own husband. How could you say such a terrible thing? Shouldn't you wish for him to get better as a wife? Your husband is in such a condition, and you two are carelessly going away. What is wrong with you? Please cancel it now. I wanted to stop them from leaving with physical force if I could. What are you talking about? We've been looking forward to this trip, and you are trying to ruin our mood. It's been planned for a long time, and we've already booked the plane tickets. I even managed to get a paid leave amidst the busy schedule, so I'm going to make the most of these 10 days. I've been providing for you. You have no right to stop us. That's right. Connor isn't getting any better anyway. Nothing will change even if we stay with him. We are going to be late, so this conversation's over. Once again, take care of the house. The pressure from the two of them was indeed too much for me, and I was at a loss for words. They quickly ran out without saying bye to Connor, but leaving me with orders. Not only Elle, but also Alex had abandoned me. I wanted to start wailing on the spot, but I could not show my tears in front of Connor. I brought breakfast to him with a smile, as if nothing had happened. The moment I put the tray on the bedside table, "Are those two gone already?" To my surprise, he was able to talk. He even stood up from the bed without a problem. What are you doing? You can speak? They've already left. I replied in amazement. Then we are leaving too. He quickly got ready and walked out of the room. 10 days had passed since Elle and Alex left home. Suddenly, they were speechless. The house, which was supposed to be there, had been turned into a flat land. Both of them panicked at the shocking sight. Alex called me in frenzy. "Oh my God, what the hell happened? The house is gone." "Welcome back. We got rid of the house. Also, your father and I have decided to divorce you guys. Our attorney will call you later. They cursed me for this unexpected turn of events. There's no way you can do such a selfish thing. You're not even the owner of the house." "She's right. You better explain yourself." I brushed it off saying, "I'll let Connor take over now." I handed the phone to him, who was standing nearby. "You two, listen to me very carefully." They were stunned to hear him speak in such a clear voice. What really happened was that he had regained his speech about 3 months after the car accident. He had kept it a secret from us all and had been receiving treatment and rehabilitation at another hospital run by his acquaintance. With his amazing recovery, he was able to speak as normal, and the after effects of the accident had disappeared. I had often witnessed him wandering about the house, but there was only a pretense of dementia. He was actually going to a hospital or to see his legal advisor. He was the only son of an affluent family and had been managing his vast wealth alone since his parents died when he was young. On the day Elle and Alex departed for Paris, I followed him to his attorney's office. He decided to move into a luxury senior apartment with nursing care, which was affiliated with the hospital I used to work at. As a token of appreciation, he offered me a sum of money for my immediate living expenses and a residence in one of his apartment buildings. After that, he sold his house to a real estate company. We both packed up and moved into our new homes. Connor had seen more than enough of Elle and Alex's nasty nature over the past few months. He was disgusted and demanded a divorce from Elle and declared to cut ties with both of them. "How can you abandon your own son?" Alex was furious, but Connor calmly confessed. "Actually, you and I are not related by blood." Alex was speechless. Connor explained to him everything that had happened. Alex was brought to the family when he was still a newborn. Elle and Connor had kept it a secret all this time. When Connor's best friend suddenly passed away, leaving his pregnant wife without much means to live, Connor pitied and took her in. Their marriage was out of the norm, but they were happy living together as a family of 3. However, Elle and Alex took advantage of the fact that Connor had become bedridden. They started spending a lot of his money and even used it to pay for the trip as well. When he noticed it, he pretended to be physically disabled. He dared them to do as they pleased and waited for the right moment. Having grown sick of them, he decided to sell the mansion. He also donated most of his wealth to a foundation for orphaned children. He had already asked the attorney to take care of the necessary procedures. I was amazed by the fact that something on such a big scale had been done so quietly. He told them that the rest would be discussed through his attorney and handed me the phone. Elle and Alex flipped out and begged me to do something about it, but I had no sympathy for them. Too bad. I've been told I'm useless except as a caregiver. I hung up the phone on them. Connor and I received numerous calls from them every day. I picked up once and told them, "I've left everything in the hands of my lawyer, so don't call me again." I blocked their calls after that. Not only did they lose their place of residence, but they faced divorce proceedings. They were also shocked to find out that most of the property was donated to a foundation, and there would be no distribution of their inheritance. In addition, Alex was forced to resign after his employer found out that he had falsely requested family paid leave when he went on the trip. After resigning, he's been working part-time while looking for a new job. Naturally, Elle has to work to make ends meet. She's been working as a cleaner from early in the morning until late at night. They are now living together in a small apartment. Meanwhile, after my divorce was finalized, I returned to the hospital where I used to work. I'm working as a nurse again. I visit Connor on a regular basis and enjoy our conversations. By the way, I've been wondering why you didn't tell me that you had recovered. You could have told me. Oh, that's because if I told you, I was afraid that those two would have found out too. My intention was to catch them off guard, you know. I'm sorry you had to deal with them for half a year. I sincerely apologize. No, I was so ready to leave them anyway. Rather, I thank you for giving me the opportunity. You always cared about me. I hope I have repaid your kindness. Thank you too. He treats me like a real daughter, and I will always love him. I am truly grateful to have met such a kind man, despite everything that happened. While I work hard as a nurse, I hope to find a wonderful man in my life soon.
My mill used me as a cash machine and forced me to divorce my husband. A few days later, he came crying to me.
Getting married or buying a home is a major turning point in one's life. It's supposed to be a joyous occasion and should change your life for the better. In my case, it was very different. I never dreamed something like that would happen to me. I'm Tracy, 35 years old. I started thinking about marrying my husband Steve about 2 years ago. We had been dating since high school. It was a tumultuous relationship of breaking up and getting back together. Before I knew it, I was already 33 years old. We had been together so long that we were like an old married couple. Although I didn't care much about marriage at that point, I felt dizzy to imagine starting a new relationship if we broke up. I was also afraid to miss the chance of getting married in the future. My parents were eager for me to marry Steve right away. I still contemplated and worried about losing my freedom though. I spanked Steve's butt and we finally got married the year before. We had already been living together, so the marriage didn't make a difference in our lifestyle. Only my parents seemed to be relieved that I got it done. They had been concerned and been asking me ever since my older sister got married. "Are you on track? When will you get married?" It seems that they were waiting for their grandchildren to come next. When I saw them talking excitedly about my marriage and grandchildren, I felt pleased to have made them happy. Steve, on the other hand, lost his father several years ago, so his mother, Penny, was his only family. She lived just a 5 minutes drive from our house, but I hardly ever saw her. The reason was simple. I didn't like her much. My parents were rather mild-mannered and soft-spoken. Penny was somewhat sarcastic and harsh. When I went to visit her in high school, she used to say things like, "You are here again?" Once I overheard her telling Steve, "You have bad taste in women." I was quite hurt back then, but it never occurred to me to break up with him just because his mother didn't like me. I used to be in my friendliest manner in front of her to be liked. When it was her birthday, I worked hard at my part-time job and bought gifts for her. Regardless, her attitude never changed toward me, so I eventually stopped trying so hard and started to avoid seeing her instead. One day, I received a rare phone call from her. I didn't even have her number saved in my phone, so I didn't know who it was at first. When I answered, I heard her voice. "Hey Tracy, I asked Steve for your number. I want to talk to you about something. Can you come over today?" Although I hadn't spoken to her for a long time, she sounded to be in a good mood. Since I had been avoiding her, I felt a little relieved that she might have been happy about our marriage. "Okay, I will come after I finish my work." I was a freelance web designer. I used to work for a company, but I became independent after I made good connections. Thankfully, my income was more than twice as much as when I was an employee. I worked from home and was able to adjust my hours to suit my needs. However, I had to do my chores as well. "Then can you come over in the evening?" Penny asked me. "I have to prepare dinner." I was about to refuse. "Steve will probably be working late tonight, so I think he will have dinner outside." I wondered how she knew about it. Was he in frequent contact with her that I just didn't know about? I was surprised. Well, she was his mother and lived alone, so he must have concern about her. I convinced myself with my thoughts. Okay, I will be there around 6 p.m. I promised and hung up the phone. Steve had been coming home late from work. I thought that he might have been visiting her. After all, it's only the two of them in the family, so they must have needed to help each other. I was thinking positively about it. In the end, it was only wishful thinking on my part. A few hours later, "Hi Penny, it's been a while." I greeted her by handing her a box of sweets I bought in the neighborhood. She smiled and tossed it aside without thanking me. Her gesture gave me a bad feeling. I followed her into the living room, feeling a little annoyed. As soon as we sat down on the sofa, "Hey, are you building a house?" she asked me. "Oh, you heard from Steve. I want a bigger workspace, and if we are going to move, we might as well build a house. Nothing concrete has been decided yet." I was a little surprised that she already knew, but Steve was chatty, so he must have mentioned it to her. What she told me next was quite shocking though. "Oh, good. Then it's not too late. Can you make a room for me too? I'm getting old, you know. I feel lonely living alone." That's a bit sudden." It was totally out of the blue. I couldn't immediately give her an answer. "Why not? You're making a lot of money, and Steve too is working.
If you could build a two-story house with separate entrance, we won't see each other much. But if something happened, it's easier to help each other out. If you have a baby, I can babysit. You can continue working as usual. She had the point. If we did have a child in the future, it would have been nice to have someone to help me out. Then I would talk it over with Steve. Oh, he always knows about it. About living together? I hadn't heard anything from him. He has already given his approval. Besides, he says your savings will be enough to cover it. What? No, he hasn't said anything to me. And why should we build a house with my saving? He has been working too. I couldn't help but raise my voice. I was flabbergasted by the unexpected turn of events and wondered how it came to be that way. Because he hasn't been able to hold down a job for very long and hasn't saved a lot of money. You can pay at first, and I will pay you later when this house sells. I've already gotten a quote from a real estate agent. She was calm, as if she had already made up her mind. You've already made arrangement to sell the house? Well, I understand what you've said so far. I will talk to Steve, so please wait. I'm leaving now. I left her house and groaned over the situation. Then I took out my phone to call Steve. There was a message from him saying, I'm going out with my clients, so I don't need dinner. Penny was right. I thought she was closer than me to him. Penny just spoke to me about living together. I sent a reply, but it didn't get 2 ticks. In the end, he didn't return home until after midnight. I wanted to discuss the matter with him as soon as possible, but he was coming home late every day, and we couldn't find time to talk. I was freaking out that Penny was going to sell the house at any moment. I threatened him by saying that if he wasn't home on Sunday, we weren't going to build a new house. And the day came. Steve had been playing video games in his pajamas since morning. Hey, what are we going to do about the house?
Oh no, I'm already busted.
He was so engrossed in the game that the conversation didn't go anywhere. Hey, are you listening to me? I've been thinking about the mortgage. From the beginning again. I was getting irritated. I didn't want him to complain later that he wasn't aware of anything, so I recorded the audio while I explained about the mortgage. So that's the type of mortgage we are going to get. Don't complain about it later, okay?
What the hell is this stupid game? Let's play a different one.
I was beginning to wonder if our marriage was a good idea. At that moment, Steve's cell phone got a notification ring.
I'm going to step out for a bit.
He got dressed and went out. I didn't think anything of it other than he was so carefree, but I should have suspected him at that point. I contemplated the house a lot and agreed with what Penny said. I tried to think positively that living together would have been more comfortable than I expected, and we decided to build a 2-story house in the end. In any case, I was very happy to have a new home of my own. The exterior was completed, and then the interior was done. The dream home was steadily becoming a reality. Steve left everything to me, saying he had no idea and was too busy. When I needed a signature from the head of the household, he signed quickly as directed without even trying to read the contents. Although I was annoyed by his aloofness, he left me alone to do whatever and however I wanted. From the start of construction to the completion, everything went smoothly as I had imagined. Finally, the day of the handover arrived. On that day, Steve and Penny went to the real estate agency to get the new keys. I had to work, so I headed straight there after meeting with a client. When I arrived, they were already waiting in the front. Whoa, it's finally done! Our own home! My ideal house, amazing! I'm so happy!
I ran up to them in excitement. It's true. It's a big, beautiful house. It's magnificent. I don't know how to thank you. Thank you for everything until now, Tracy. Penny happily mentioned. Until now? Do you mean the procedures? It was a lot of stress, but when I saw this house, all that was blown away. I exclaimed.
Well, I'm sorry, but can you also blow away with the feelings?
Excuse me? I just stood there not understanding what he meant. Hello? A woman came out of the car.
She is the daughter of the president of my work. I want to marry her. Please divorce me.
He said it like he was just canceling a date with me. I was at a loss for words when Penny spoke. So that's that. You're nothing compared to the boss' daughter. He's going to get a promotion in the company, so you should understand and back off. Oh, but the mortgage on the house is in your name, right? I will thank you for that. No way, you're kidding. So you knew it too, Penny? You two were in on it together. That's terrible. You've been home late. Was it because you were seeing this woman? How dare you? I was so confused by what was going on that I just blurted out whatever came to mind. The woman was outrageous too. It is what it is. I'm sorry. How could she take someone's husband and act nonchalantly? I thought someone would tell me it was a joke, but no one did. I eventually realized that everyone was dead serious, and my blood drained from my face. I was in tears of defeat, unable to step foot inside my new home, and left the place hearing their laughter. I spent 3 days and 3 nights crying, but my parents helped me regain my strength. I eventually went back to work and kept myself busy tackling the work that had piled up. Fortunately, I didn't have time to ponder about the calamity, but when it popped even a second into my mind, I felt great distress. I wasn't just going to cry myself to sleep. I didn't plan to forgive them so easily. Then I was offered a new project with the biggest paycheck ever. It was an opportunity for a fresh start. I fell behind Steve, who moved his stuff out first, but I moved into a beautiful luxury apartment. When my move was done and settled, I decided to start my revenge against him. Of course, I wanted to make Penny sorry too. A few days later, I met up with him at the coffee shop and told him that I wanted to settle everything and that I would sign the divorce papers. So, I want you to sign these divorce papers and also the property division and all that. Sign here and here. He signed as he was told without checking anything. When he was done, "Thank you. Please take care of the rest of the loan," I cheerfully mentioned.
What are you talking about? The mortgage on that house is in your name, right?
He smirked. Don't you remember this? I played a recording of me suggesting to get a joint loan while he was playing a game.
What's this? I don't remember it. What's a joint loan?
Even if he didn't remember, it was clearly on the recording. Besides, you signed the papers yourself. A joint loan is an agreement between a husband and a wife that they will pay the mortgage together. The documents that he signed without reading them also contain an application for the loan.
Am I supposed to pay for half of the loan? That's impossible.
I couldn't stand his attitude to still try to escape after all he had done. I'm sorry to hear that. You signed the papers just now, didn't you? After what happened, I consulted with the bank I borrowed from and my lawyer. We consolidated the loan into one in your name, since you will continue to live in the house. You're going to have to pay for everything.
What are you talking about? You can't do.
I could do it. My parents were out of the world furious. You know my father was a banker, right? His ex-subordinates hold high positions now. One of them took care of the loan stuff for me. He was the one who advised me on the joint loan. So I told him everything that had happened, and he told me how to transfer the mortgage to you. Steve's face grew paler by the second.
Wait, you didn't. Actually, I tried living with the boss's daughter, but things didn't work out. She's back at her parents' house right now. The president is angry with me. He said he was going to cancel my promotion. I'm not getting a raise, and if we don't reconcile, I won't be able to stay at the company.
I could care less. I was betrayed by him in front of me, a guy I had been with for years. Suck it up. You will get the loan documents in the mail later. You can take care of the rest. It's none of my business now.
Honey, don't say that. Help me.
He started crying in the cafe, and people around him were staring at him. He was about to say something, but I didn't want to hear anything else. I hoped he would be punished for treating me like a cash machine. After I walked a few steps away from the table, I realized that I forgot to leave money for the coffee and went back.
It's just a coffee. I will pay for it,
Steve mumbled. After all the talk about hundreds of thousands of dollars, it may not be a big deal. I just don't want to owe you even a penny. Tears welled up in his eyes again. A grown man crying in a coffee shop was a hideous sight. I quietly put the $10 bill on the table and left. A few months later, the house is up for sale. My father has been in contact with his ex-subordinate. I've heard that Steve fell behind on the payments after paying a certain amount from the sale of Penny's house. He resigned from his job, so I assume that the woman dumped him. I wonder what he's going to do with the rest of the loan until he finds a buyer. He has been unable to find a job and currently have no income, so he's living in a small apartment with Penny. She's working as a cleaner to make ends meet. As for me, my work is going well, and I'm busy but fulfilled every day. I'm increasingly being entrusted with web designers for major companies. I recently worked on a corporate website. The irony was that it was a page for a major real estate company's family home campaign. In any case, it is a joy to see my parents happy when they see what I have created. As my network of business contacts expands, I've met a guy who catches my attention. He is a hard-working competitor. I'm 35 years old now. I can start over however I want. It's up to the person to decide where life starts to get interesting.
My mother-in-law bullies me, and my husband is always on her side. They thought they could make me obey, but I say goodbye to them.
When I come home from shopping, my husband, Taylor, and his mother, Rose, both looks at me with frowns on their faces.
Hey, sit down. I need to talk to you about something. You're being terrible, aren't you? I really can't believe that you treated my mother so badly.
Excuse me? My name is Melanie, and I am 27 years old, and I am a housewife. My husband, Taylor, and I are newlyweds and started living together this spring. When we got married together, Taylor had asked me to focus on being a housewife. In the beginning, our newly wedded life was a lot of fun. I would make breakfast and lunch for my husband, do laundry and the cleaning around the house, and after a bit of relaxing around the living room, I would go grocery shopping to prepare and begin cooking dinner. My husband would happily eat what I had cooked, and we were both living happily together. But unfortunately, such happy lifestyle for both of us ended after only a few months. A few months after we got married, my father-in-law Jim passed away due to illness. My husband said that since he was an only child, he felt sorry for his own mother Rose to be left all alone. So, because of that, he began to insist that he wanted for us to live together with Rose. To be honest, I was against the idea of moving in with Rose. The reason for that was because Rose did not seem to like me very much from the beginning. When I first greeted her, as it was decided that Taylor and I would get married, she said, Well, if Taylor wants to get married, I can't really help it. And sounded as if she was completely against our marriage. So, that was why I did not think that living together with Rose would work so well. When I discussed this with my husband, he replied to me saying,
"Oh, don't worry. Mom may look unfriendly at first, but she's actually really kind."
The thoughts I had in my mind were changed by the fact that my husband said that without any hesitation and very confidently. So, in the end, I agreed to live with Rose as Taylor was insisting for it strongly. The move-in with Rose started with Taylor and I moving into her house because it was much more spacious. Oh, you two have come a long way.
Mom, please do take care of us well from now on.
We will both be in your care. Oh, come on. There's no need for any more formal greetings like that, so just come on in. Rose greeted us and welcomed us into the house with a kind smile. After we finished unpacking, Rose was very kind to us while we were having tea together in the living room.
You know what? I want to eat Mom's fried chicken for the first time in a while.
Oh, really? Well then, let's have the fried chicken today. I want to teach Melanie my special fried chicken recipe, so please help me make it, Melanie. All right, I will. Well, my husband may be right. Rose was very kind and not scary at all as I thought she would be. Maybe I was a little nervous, or maybe I was a little stiff when I greeted Rose for the wedding, because Taylor is her only son, after all. Maybe we all would have a nice, good time to live together like this without any problems. Or so I thought. Because a problem happened right after that. It happened in the kitchen afterwards when we started to cook for the fried chicken. As soon as it was just Rose and I alone together, she suddenly changed her attitude completely. Her smile disappeared, and she began to glare at me very coldly, just as she had done when I first greeted her. Are you sure you can cook? Yes. I can do a little bit of everything. Then, can you cut the chicken for me? Okay, I will. Oh, no. You can't do it like that. What? Oh, that's enough. Just get the seasonings out. Where are the seasonings? Ugh! If it goes on like this, it will take us a really long time to finish making the fried chicken. Are you sure that you're really a housewife? Seeing you like that, I really wonder if Taylor gets to even eat properly or not. And like this, Rose would say such unreasonable and mean things to me. For the most part, even the way on how I cut the chicken was normal, and Rose didn't even tell me what exactly was wrong with how I cut them. Besides, since I just came to live in her house today, it's definitely obvious that I couldn't really know where the seasonings are placed. My husband always says what I cook tastes good, and I feed him nutritiously balanced meals. So, why would Rose even say such things like that to me? When Rose finished cooking and put the food on the table, she acted as if she was a completely different person. Oh, Taylor, honey, dinner is ready.
Ooh, the fried chicken looks so delicious.
Since Melanie had helped me, we were able to make them very quickly. Huh? Yes, that's right. Rose acted as if she was being a very good mother-in-law to me in front of my husband. Well, Rose's strategy seemed to work, and my husband mistakenly thought that Rose and I were getting along very well. But during the daytime, when my husband was out working, Rose began to torment me as much as she could. Oh, Melanie, you haven't cleaned up at all. You need to do the top of this bookshelf too. But it's a little too high up there for me to reach and clean. Don't make any stupid excuses like that. We have a ladder, so make use of that. Like this, Rose tries to get me to clean the top of the bookshelf, which even a man would find it quite high to reach. If it were me, I would have to get on the stepladder and stand on tiptoes to just barely reach it. I'm really sorry, I can't. I know for sure that I'll get hurt. You really can't do anything, huh? I feel sorry for Taylor for having a useless wife like you, Melanie. Aren't you ashamed that you can't even do any house chores properly at all, even though you're Taylor's housewife? These daily sarcastic comments and pointless lectures that Rose would give me was just too much. One day, I just got so fed up with it that I talked to my husband about it. Hey, I'm having a hard time with Rose, you know. Would you talk to your mother about it?
What? But you always seem to get along with her very well.
Rose is just acting when she's around you. When it's just the two of us during the day, especially when you're gone, she would always say something terrible to me.
Oh, is that so?
Huh? Hey, are you even listening to me properly?
What? I'm just tired from work. First of all, aren't you being just too self-conscious about this whole thing?
Excuse me?
I told you that at first, my mom does look a little unfriendly. So, even when mom's just acting normal, she just sounds angry to you. Isn't that what's happening?
No way. But if you hear what Rose says some things to me, you can clearly see that she's verbally abusing me.
Well, it's all about how you take it, isn't it? I'm definitely sure that my mom is saying everything with love.
How could Taylor even interpret it that way? I unconsciously knew this, but it seems like my husband was a mama's boy. That's why he blindly trusts his own mother without ever questioning about her. If Taylor is being like this, then I can no longer rely on him. Which is why I have to protect myself. Even after that, Rose continued to bully me as usual. Rose made me do all the house chores while she just sat on the living room sofa and watched the TV. She would then complain with the lunch I made, and there were times where she would also throw it in the trash. When Rose gets bored of watching the TV, she starts complaining about how I did the house chores and even begins to deny my personality. The only time I feel safe is when I go shopping at the supermarket for groceries by myself. But when it takes more than 20 minutes to do my grocery shopping, Rose would accuse me by saying, "You're late. You must be cheating on Taylor, aren't you?" And say such nonsense. And like this, I get to be free from Rose for only a few minutes. I've only been married for less than a year, and yet this is the situation. Is it possible that this situation will continue until Rose is gone for good? I really didn't want to continue living miserably like this. The words divorce were floating around in my head. Then one day, on the weekend, when I come home from shopping, my husband Taylor and his mother Rose both looks at me with frowns on their faces.
Hey, sit down. I need to talk to you about something. You're being terrible, aren't you? I really can't believe that you treated my mother so badly.
Excuse me? I'm treating Rose badly? When it's the other way around? What do you mean?
I heard everything from my mom, you know. She says that she's being harassed by you.
Huh?
I heard that you force all the house chores onto her, ignore her when she tries to talk to you, and even throw her lunch that she made for you in the trash.
Excuse me?
I didn't know that you were such a horrible, lousy woman.
Now wait a minute. I never did any of that.
Are you saying that my mom is lying then?
I look at Rose and I see her grinning. Oh, she really did it this time. Rose was spouting lies, and my husband is totally believing everything that she tells him.
Mom says that she doesn't want to see you for a while. So go back home to where your parents are and reflect on your own actions.
I was just fed up. To Rose, who harasses me in a really immature way, and to my husband, who is a mama's boy and who can't see through who Rose really was. I understand. I'll go back home to my parents' place. I pretended to feel bad and quietly packed up my belongings. Meanwhile, Rose was grinning at me and my husband, perhaps mistakenly thinking he was in a superior position, was looking very proud at what he was doing. I left their house, vowing that I would revenge them for what they had done to me. My parents were surprised when I returned with a large luggage, but they were so furious when I explained the situation. They told me to get rid of those people as soon as possible. I got to stretch my wings a little at my parents' house. I was able to have fun cooking meals with my mother without any complaints. I wondered how long it has been since I was able to sit on the couch and watch TV. After a few days of relaxing and recovering both mentally and physically, I went to a lawyer's office to prepare for my divorce. I also did some job hunting and had a few interviews with companies. I found a job sooner than I had expected, so now it was time for me to look for a place to live. And just like that, I was able to find a room that met my requirements. I felt as if my luck was telling me to divorce my husband, and everything was going smoothly. About 2 weeks after I was kicked out from Rose's house, I received a phone call from my husband.
Have you calmed down now?
Yes.
Then if so, you may come back here now.
So I went back to Rose's house. Then I would see both my husband and Rose with huge grins on their faces who were waiting for me.
Did you reflect back on your own actions properly?
Yes.
Then apologize to my mom. If you do that, then you may live in this house again.
No, thank you.
What?
I have been reflecting back on my lack of decisiveness. What the hell are you talking about? Thank you for everything you have done to me until now. Saying that, I put the divorce papers on the table.
Huh? Divorce?
Melanie, what is the meaning of this? I can't live with you two anymore. So let's just get a divorce, please.
You must be kidding me, right?
No, I'm being serious.
No way.
My husband was shocked, but when he realized that I was being very serious, he got really angry and emotional.
Oh, really? Fine, do what you want. But what you did to my mom is unforgivable. Mom has suffered emotional distress because of you. I'm gonna get the certificate of diagnosis and sue you with it.
That's right. You are such a menace for threatening us with divorce. Oh, I don't mind what you do, but if you do that, aren't you the one who's going to be in trouble for the false diagnosis or something like that?
What the hell do you mean?
And at this point, I called for my lawyer, who had been waiting in the car outside.
What? A lawyer?
Everything what Rose is saying is a lie.
Excuse me?
The lawyer then played the audio data that I had given him. On it were recorded audios of Rose's verbal abuse towards me.
What? This is
just a part of many abusings I received from your mother. And now, hearing this, do you still believe what your mother says?
No way. There's no way that my mom would...
Oh, my... Rose was panicking because the truth came into light. Oh, Rose, I heard that you told the neighbors that you were being harassed by me. No, that's... What you did was defamation. So, I'm going to sue you. What? Oh no!
Mom is a housewife, so she doesn't have that kind of money.
Then, as her son, why don't you pay for her instead? Anyways, divorce and compensation is a must. Saying this, I left my husband and Rose right then and there. My husband and Rose were both unable to move from the spot with their faces being very pale. After that, things went smoothly. Taylor, not wanting to cause any more trouble, agreed to the divorce, and he also paid the compensation for Rose on her behalf. The neighbors no longer took Rose seriously after they all found out the truth of what had actually happened. And Taylor was also disgusted with Rose because of this incident, and she's now living all alone on her own with no one on her side. Well, Rose got what she deserved. And as for Taylor, I had an acquaintance at Taylor's office where he worked at, so I reported the whole story to that acquaintance. My ex-husband was labeled as a mama's boy who was abandoned by his own wife because of being a mama's boy, and people in the company laughed at him behind his back, which made him feel really small. When Taylor tries to leave on the dot, he is teased by people who says things like, "Aw, are you leaving already because you want to see your mommy?" Well, I'm sure that kind of teasing will eventually stop, but I'm sure it will make Taylor feel so small, as he had a huge pride in himself. Meanwhile, I am spending my days living in a new room, working at a new job, and with a fresh mind. The room is really comfortable, and the job is challenging. I'm not really interested to be in a relationship for a while, so I'm going to spend my money and time on my hobbies while enjoying the single life. Thank you for watching until the end. Please subscribe to our channel. We hope to see you in our next video.
My husband stood in front of me and thrust a piece of paper at me.
I'm remarrying my 20-something girlfriend, and I'm divorcing you, old woman.
His expression seemed somewhat satisfied, yet at the same time I could feel him looking down on me. The only thing I understand is this: he's not joking. And from the look on his face, he's really serious about getting a divorce. Is it really okay?
Oh, I don't have any business with old people like you anymore.
I see. If you say so, there's no helping it.
Well, I'll pay you alimony, so go ahead and embrace a lonely old age by yourself.
While wearing a smug, unpleasant smile, my husband is observing my reaction. However, he still doesn't know that his words haven't caused any damage to me at all. Divorce? That was within my expectations from the beginning. I'll grant your wish and let us get divorced, so don't regret it, okay? My name is Laura, 57 years old. I'm just an ordinary part-time housewife who works at a bank. I work at a local bank, but it's quite profitable. With over 30 years of service, I earn more than enough income every month. My husband, Jeffrey, works for a regular company, but just between us, I actually have a higher salary. Once, while cleaning my husband's room, I happened to come across his payslip and found out that I earn more than him. I haven't told Jeffrey about this. Nowadays, it's common for couples to both work, and the term house husband has become normal. There are more households where the wife earns more, and such situations have become more prevalent. However, in our generation, the fact that the wife earns more tends to hurt the husband's pride. Until now, I haven't been asked about my income, and we've been managing our living expenses by splitting everything equally. So, there was never a need to explicitly disclose my income. Besides, as a couple, we have never been in financial trouble. Due to both of us working and our only son, Timothy, already being a working adult, and also having started living on his own, our expenses have significantly decreased. Is it really possible for the cost of living to change so much with just one less person? Indeed, the grocery expenses vary significantly with or without a growing young man in the household. My husband and I, as we've aged, have reduced our food intake, so the money spent on groceries has decreased compared to before. Over the past few years, we've been able to save a considerable amount. In a sense, it's just my husband and me in our daily lives, with our son occasionally dropping by. I used to think that this peaceful life would continue like this in the future. However, in places I wasn't aware of,
A sense of discomfort had slowly started to emerge. One day, I returned home from work and began preparing dinner. But my husband didn't come home. Normally, he returns while I'm in the middle of preparing dinner, and we eat together. But for some reason, on this day, even though dinner was ready, there was no sign of my husband returning. Overtime, I wonder? But there hasn't been much overtime in the past few years. There are days when I go back on weekends and come back late. During weekdays, I sometimes go out for drinks with colleagues. He always sends some message like, "I'll be late due to a drinking party," or "I don't eat dinner." But why is there nothing today, of all days? Feeling anxious, I sent a message to my husband, but there was no reply, not even a red receipt. I made several attempts to call, but there was only the ringing tone, and no one answered. This has never happened before. What on earth could be going on? I hope it's not something like an accident, right? My chest felt uneasy, and a cold sweat started to trickle down. I decided to wait until the date changed, and if he still didn't come back, I thought I would contact our son. As I waited with these thoughts, it was almost midnight when I heard the sound of the front door opening. "Welcome back, honey." I hurriedly approached, and my husband looked startled when he saw me. But quickly, he returned to his usual expression and opened his mouth, saying, "Were you awake?" Even though he didn't contact me, let alone respond, making such a carefree remark irritated me, and I was giving my husband a pointed look. "Were you awake?" Well, obviously, right? There was no contact, and you didn't answer the phone. I was even considering contacting Timothy because I was so worried.
That's an exaggeration. It's not a big deal to make such a fuss just because there was no response for a few hours.
If you had mentioned something about stopping by or asking about plans beforehand, I wouldn't have been so frantic. It's worse to be late without any contact, isn't it?
I just went for a drink with a colleague for a bit. It happened spontaneously, so what can you do?
If that's the case, couldn't you have sent a simple message like, "I'll be late"?
You're being annoying. Don't nag me about such trivial things.
My husband raised his voice, let out a heavy sigh, and went to the bedroom. He didn't even touch the meal or step into the bath that I had prepared with care. Over the past few years, whenever something displeased him, he started raising his voice like this. I used to think it was because of age, but regardless, it felt so unreasonable, or I don't know how to describe it. Even though it's been 30 years since we got married, my heart was wearing thin. At that time, as I had a day off from work, I decided to go shopping alone for the first time in a while. The reason for this was that my son's birthday is approaching next month. At my age, buying a birthday present for my son feels a bit unusual, and I can't help but question it. But it's a big day, once a year, and I want to celebrate it with all my heart. I headed to the department store to look for a birthday present for my son. My husband also said he was going out today, so it would be just me for the night. On my way home, I got takeout food and came home to find, to my surprise, my husband already there. "You're home? I'm sorry, I thought you were alone and I only had dinner for..." My husband said,
"I have something important to tell you,"
and turned his attention to me. From the tone of voice, it doesn't sound like it's that light. I put down my bags and sat down right in front of my husband. "So? About the finances?"
"Well, you see, I'd like you to reduce the amount I contribute to the living expenses for a while."
"Huh? Why all of a sudden?"
"No, it's just, when you go out for a drink with your subordinates, the older guy pays, right? So it's been a little tough around here."
"Did you spend that much money on drinks?"
"Look, even Timothy has moved out, and we have some extra money now, right? So on weekends when I go out with colleagues and subordinates, I end up covering the expenses, being the older one.
It's true that my husband likes to make himself look good, but if it affects the family's finances, it's not worth it. The fact that my husband is talking like this means he must really be in need of money. Because until now, I have rarely been approached about money. Experiencing a mix of emotions, I observed my husband wearing a genuinely apologetic expression. It stirred a tight feeling in my chest. Letting out a sigh, I spoke to my husband. Fine, but in return, I want you to think a bit more before spending money from now on.
Yeah, I got it. I'll be careful.
Absolutely, okay? Just because Timothy isn't around doesn't mean we have unlimited money. I want to save for the future, including building up our savings.
Yeah, you're right. I'll be more careful from now on. Thank you so much.
With a cheerful demeanor, my husband headed to the kitchen and started drinking beer. Given his sudden change in attitude, I couldn't help but doubt whether he was truly reflecting on his actions. However, since I had accepted my husband's request, I couldn't say anything. From that day on, my husband started coming home late almost every night. He would provide reasons like going out for drinks with a junior colleague or invited by a coworker, but I couldn't verify their authenticity. Then one day, my son Timothy called to thank me for his birthday present.
Hey, Mom, I don't want to say this, but...
Huh? What do you mean?
I mean, Dad wasn't the type to go out drinking that frequently, even when he was younger, right? Considering that he's less tolerant of alcohol now, why would he go out drinking so frequently?
Yeah, that's true. He only drinks a can of beer occasionally at home.
I don't want to doubt him as his son, but from what I've heard, something seems suspicious. Can I look into it a bit?
Investigate? How would you do that?
I know someone who works at a detective agency. I'm going to ask them for a little favor.
It felt somewhat uncomfortable to investigate my husband's behavior, but my son suggested it. And considering that I also had some doubts, I decided to leave it to my son. 2 weeks later, I would hear shocking news from my son.
Mom, it seems Dad has been frequenting a strip club and spending a lot on a favorite dancer.
My son's words left me quite shocked. I never thought my husband would do such a thing, and my mind went blank. I was puzzled, and my son calmly continued his story.
Dad seems to have one-sided feelings for that dancer. It's on an abnormal level.
Unbelievable. Making me bear the living expenses with false reasons? And meanwhile he's lavishing money on a favorite dancer?
Yeah, it might affect your life, Mom, if things continue like this. So, I think you should consider your various options. If you have nowhere to go, my apartment is available.
Thank you, Timothy. I'll think about it for a bit. After ending the call, I took a deep breath. While regaining composure, my anger towards my husband, who I couldn't put into words, exploded. I couldn't forgive him for deceitfully lying to me for his own convenience. I can't believe he would contribute money to a dancer at that age without thinking twice about it. I decided to thoroughly corner him. I told my son I'd give it some thought, but I already reached a decision. The next day, I started working and preparing for divorce at the same time. The first thing I did was secure a new home. The fact that my husband was spending money on a dancer had been confirmed by the detective my son hired, and my son had directly visited the dancer to confirm that there was no affair between her and my husband. According to my son's account, it seemed like she was actually bothered by my husband's actions. Whether it was true or not was no longer of any concern. What was crucial for me was that my husband had lied to me, visited a strip bar, and spent enough on the dancer to affect our household finances. This could be a significant reason for divorce. Indeed, when I consulted a law firm, it seemed there were quite a few cases of divorces due to a partner's extravagant spending. In other words, if I could gather proper evidence, I could divorce favorably without considering my husband's intentions. Confident in this, I rented an apartment near my workplace so that I would be ready for divorce whenever it happened. My son's contributions of valuable information and evidence enabled the lawyer to say,
"Let's proceed with the formal procedures."
I was planning to talk to my husband about it this weekend, or so I thought. One day after I had finished dinner around 7 p.m., he returned home. He came home unusually early, and just when I thought that, he stood in front of me and handed over a single sheet of paper. It was, of all things, a divorce agreement. I shifted my gaze to my husband's face, and he opened his mouth wide.
"I'm remarrying my 20-something girlfriend, and I'm divorcing you, old woman."
His expression seemed somewhat satisfied, yet at the same time I could feel him looking down on me. The only thing I understand is he's not joking. From the look on his face, he's really serious about getting a divorce. I was on the verge of bursting into laughter, but desperately responded, "Divorce? Are you really saying that seriously?"
"Yeah, sorry, but I've got an incredibly cute girlfriend now."
"Girlfriend?"
"Shocked, huh? But don't think badly of me. It's your fault for aging."
He laughed loudly and began to denigrate my appearance, taking the opportunity to insult me. Despite not being one to talk, various emotions welled up in me, and before anger could take over, I found myself more exasperated. I thought there was no more value in continuing this conversation. That's what I believed as I quietly asked him, "Are you really okay with this?"
"Yeah, I have no use for an old woman like you anymore."
"Well, if that's how you see it, there's nothing I can do."
"Well, I'll pay alimony, so just embrace a lonely old age on your own."
With a smirk and an unpleasant grin, my husband observed my reaction, but he still doesn't know that his words haven't caused me any damage at all. Divorce? It was what I had expected from the beginning. "As you wish. I'll grant you the divorce, so don't regret it, okay?" "Understood." I accepted the divorce agreement that my husband presented and signed it. My husband seemed slightly surprised at how easily I accepted the divorce. As he watched me finish filling out the paperwork,
"Make sure to submit that first thing tomorrow morning,"
he said, and returned to his room, looking satisfied. I never thought the divorce would happen so soon, but it was a good thing I had prepared. I packed up the belongings I had sorted out and contacted my son. We had talked about my son helping me when I moved out, so Timothy picked me up right away the next morning. We loaded the belongings into Timothy's car and headed straight to my new place. On the way, I submitted the divorce agreement and informed the lawyer, deciding to proceed with the procedures for claiming alimony. 3 days later, with the unpacking mostly done, I was considering inviting my son over for a meal to express my gratitude. Just as I was thinking about it, my son called. "Hello," I answered, and he informed me with a voice that seemed exasperated.
"Mom, it's about my old man. He showed up at my place and is causing trouble."
"Huh? Him?"
"Yeah, sorry, but could you come over right away?"
"I understand. I'll be there soon." After hanging up the phone, I immediately headed to my son's apartment. There, my ex-husband, who had turned pale, was slumped over. Even though only 3 days had passed, he looked drastically thinner. His complexion was obviously unhealthy, and he seemed on the verge of collapsing. Before I could inquire about what happened in the past few days, he spoke up on his own.
Laura, I messed up, so please, let's give it another shot."
"What are you talking about? You were the one who brought up the divorce."
"That was a mistake. I apologize. I won't say it again, so please forgive me."
"Weren't you supposed to marry that woman in her 20s?
No, that's..."
"It's impossible, right? Because you were just unilaterally infatuated and splurging on her without any reason." When I mentioned the truth, Jeffrey reacted in surprise.
"Why would you say that?"
He reacted with surprise. It's not surprising that he was taken aback. Who could have imagined that I knew all the details? I revealed that my son and I had been quietly investigating behind the scenes. I exposed that, through a lawyer, I had been preparing for a divorce well in advance. Upon learning these facts, my ex-husband turned visibly paler compared to before. His expression was that of utter despair, as if everything had crumbled.
Please, forgive me. I'm broke now.
It seems that his favorite dancer's birthday celebration took place not long ago. In order to stand out more than other patrons, he apparently used up all his savings there. He's now in no position to pay the alimony he talked so arrogantly about. But that's not my concern. He brought all of this upon himself. I shot him a cold stare and bluntly said, I have no intention of forgiving you now. Telling lies, deceiving, and belittling? There's no way I could start over with someone like you, right? Your circumstances don't matter. I'll make sure you pay the alimony in full, you know. Be prepared to take responsibility no matter what measures I have to take. Upon hearing my words, Jeffrey broke down in tears. However, even seeing him in such a state didn't shake my resolve. My feelings for him had completely vanished to that extent. Later, through a lawyer, the divorce was finalized and I claimed alimony from Jeffrey. Apparently, he had accumulated debts to lavish gifts on his favorite dancer. Adding insults to injury, there was alimony to me, further escalating his debts. To repay the debts, he now works part-time in addition to his regular job. He's going through rough days. On the other hand, I am spending peaceful days alone. With more time to myself compared to before, I have increased the frequency of visits to my son. We share meals and engage in light conversations. Such ordinary days bring me great happiness. From now on, I want to walk through life with my son in a way that makes me genuinely happy.